more people will come. More people, because if they know that only being 5 months in Spain now, it's enough to be a regular immigrant, they will come more. If they know that they will have basic salary from the state, they will come more. If they know they don't need even to speak our languages, they will come more. And they will come more and more and more and more. And we just need to see the data.
The Spanish government recently gave amnesty to hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants. Why?
Well, the word amnesty maybe is too strong for now. What they say is that actually most of these people are actually working in Spain illegally, which is most surprising for us. But the option they say is that this is the only way they can have to make these people work legally. So most of them are already working. The government says it's the only option to have them in the system, paying taxes and being part of our everyday life. But let's say the official number is of a million, but according to other studies, they are increasing that number even to up to 840,000, so almost a million. And we know how it works, the slippery slope. Probably in the future will be much more. And it's not the first time this happens. We have already four massive regularizations in the past since 1986. Two of them in the past were also, three of them were with the socialists and two with the Christian Democrats, the so-called classic conservative parties such as People's Party, for example, which is now more center left.
Now, I know that you're based in Brussels, but obviously you are Spanish. Can you give us an idea of what it's like in Spain at the moment with the illegal migrants? I think people in Britain, would have a lot of sympathy for that because we've got our own illegal migrant problem. How much of an issue is it in Spain at the moment?
For the British audience, have in mind that we are more or less in the same situation. Let's say official data. We are now almost 20% of all the Spaniards, not Spaniards, but Spanish people, actually legal Spanish citizens, are from immigration origin. One of the parents are, whether men or women, are from outside the country. So basically, numbers more or less is the situation. It's true, and this is something probably now that helped us as a Spaniard to be more safe or safer than other countries such as France or even England, that most of these immigrants are from Latin America or America, which means that, let's say, they are closer to us than other people from Africa, especially Arabs and Muslims and so on. So it's true that it's shocking for the system. It's true that it's shocking for the education system, health system, public transport. But still, for now, despite the fact of the numbers, it's not that bad as we think in numbers. Don't misunderstand me. Things are bad. Society has changed. In that case, situation is really, really bad. If we look for the Muslims, for example, it's 2.5 Muslims, 2.5 million. Most of them concentrated in Catalonia, with almost 800,000 people just there, and now especially also having problems in the Basque Country as well. So most of those immigrants are concentrated in Madrid because most of them, as I said before, comes from Latin America through the airport. But also a lot of problems we have now in Canary Island and in Andalusia, because most of these people come with, we call them pateras, which are the illegal boats, these long wooden boats that come from the coast of Northern Africa to Spain. Similar that the problem you have crossing the channel from France to England. More or less is the same problem here.
I went to Ceuta in 2018 and reported in another job years and years ago about the illegal migrants trying to get into Spain through these enclaves in Morocco. And this really was a time when this was beginning. I mean, if you go before 2018, a lot of the illegal migration was going up through Italy, through Lampedusa, through Greece, and that shifted really towards Morocco and towards Spain. How has the Spanish government reacted to the illegal migration crisis over the last decade? Have you been governed by socialist governments, conservative governments, and how have they reacted to this problem?
From what you said, there's something that's true and something is not that true. We have been suffering this kind of immigration for decades. The thing is that probably the European countries or the European media haven't paid attention that much as, for example, for Italy, because Italy is more international, let's say, than Spain. But we have been suffering the same issue for decades, especially because of the relationship with Morocco. This question you raise is very important because we see that our government is hijacked by Moroccan government somehow. The system we have called the regime of the 17th 8, after Franco's died, was basically controlled by the socialist government, which was in the power for almost 16 years in a row, non-stop, vast majorities. Then come the Christian Democrats, the center-right parties, which didn't change much. It's true that the first prime minister, which was Jose Maria Aznar, kind of changed a little bit the economy. But as we can see in all of our countries, in England, in France, in Germany, we always have the left parties which are always radicalizing more and more and more and more. And then we have the center right parties that are not able or do not want to give the fight. So they basically manage the economy the best they can, and that's it. They don't change any immigration policy. They don't change gender ideology or anything of these leftist regulation or crazy regulation sometimes, most of the times. But in Spain, the situation is really embarrassing because the PP, the People's Party, was supposed to be this big party for the right people. The right wing in Spain historically has been really strong, really Christian, really Catholic, really rooted in our origins and our fight with the Muslims in the Reconquista. But nowadays, they are basically managing the end of the country. They are not fighting anytime, anywhere against the socialists. And in fact, the craziest thing of this last crisis with this vast regulation of immigrants is that in the beginning, this was a request of the Catholic Church in Spain, signed by 600,000 people, probably most of them taking benefits from this social help, that then was approved or there was welcomed by the Socialist Party and the People's Party. But at the end was the Socialist Party with Podemos who signed this law without having any kind of debate in the country. But we should not look away to the fact that the People's Party in the beginning agree with the idea of this vast regulation of illegal immigrants. But because of the polls, we see the polls also in the whole Europe is the same. Europe is changing towards the right, or let's say the more right than usual. So the People's Party needs to move in between the left, center left people and the right wing voters, and sometimes play their left and sometimes play their right. So in the terms when it comes about immigration, they are now hiding a little bit more. Probably it's because of political strategy. It's not a matter of trust. It's not a matter they want to fight immigration because they also have a lot of votes for immigrants. But at least on this last regulation, they didn't support at the end. But in the beginning, they were part of it.
How have people reacted to giving the work documents to these illegal migrants? And can you tell us a bit about Vox, which is the more populist party in Spain?
As I said before, let's say that for now, the vast majority of Spaniards do. I mean, of course, they realize we have a problem, but in some areas, this problem is just a number problem, not a cultural impact, or not a cultural problem, not a religious problem. As I said before, education, health, public transport are saturated. That's for sure. There's no way to say there is something different. But still, I don't know why there's a mindset that block our response, that do not allow us to have radical answers in a positive way. I mean, with radical, I mean root answers to the main core issue. And still, some people want to look away and say, okay, this is not my problem. Probably this is not that bad. And there's a lot of people that vote for the left, that this is something that comes from the fascists, from the far right. The problem is on their minds. It's not a real problem. But it's true that the situation is changing. 20% of the actual population is immigrant origin, and the people are starting to note this situation, even immigrants, because the most affected population are the immigrants, because the legal immigrants, let's say, they wanted to be legal in Spain. They went through almost 8 to 10 years to have the papers, and now they have the papers. They see people that they jump the fence in Africa to come to Ceuta or Melilla, and they have even more rights than they used to have working legally. Same, for example, in the United States. There are a lot of people that do not want the illegals because it's unfair also to these people that they want to do the good way. So, because of this, Vox is, of course, increasing in numbers. Also, because a lot of voters are now from Latin America, and they escape from socialism, they escape from communism, they escape from systems that destroy their life and their future, and they do not want that in the countries they go to work after that. For example, we have a lot of people from Venezuela, we have a lot of people from Colombia, we have a lot of people from Mexico, Argentina. Most of them, of course, are welcome, and because they know what is going to happen to Spain. And as we see now, is everywhere in the news, our country, our government, Spain, is really connected to Maduros and narco terrorists from Latin America. And somehow that is going to affect in the future. We also saw the accident in the trains. That's because of the corruption in the government, the socialist government. And it's also affecting everywhere, not only Spaniards, but also immigrants in the system. But I used to work in, for example, in a foundation a few years ago, which one of the jobs were integrating immigrants. And I know from the inside how this works. It's a huge, huge business. Millions of euros wasted in people that are not going to integrate because they are not even speaking our language. There, an example for in computer. I remember a computer class I gave. There were people that don't even know what a mouse was. I asked to move the mouse to the left. They grabbed the mouse and they put it on the left of the table. And this is also important. The immigrants, or the legal immigrants, are not the only ones to blame. The real problem of this we have on not only Spain but England, all Europe, all the Western world is our politicians. Those are the ones passing these laws. Those are the ones allowing us to be how we are. Those are the ones that controls the police, the army, the borders. Those are the ones giving the orders. Because I know how I have a lot of people in the army, I have a lot of people in the police, and they want to act. They know what is going on, but unless they are not protected by politicians, they won't risk their jobs, they won't risk their lives because there's nothing to risk about. And this is a huge problem because the problem starts from the politicians and then goes down the pyramid to the basis of the societies.
Now, you mentioned Franco earlier, and obviously you're talking a lot about the left being concerned about fascism and the far right. To what extent does Franco loom over Spanish politics today? What's his legacy in Spanish politics in contemporary debates?
Interesting question. Also, again, let's say that the socialists, as we know, the Orwellian style, they need to control. If you control the present, you control the past, and then you control the future. So Franco won the war. We had that dictatorship for 40 years, and he took, of course, with good and bad things as usual in every government. He took a destroyed country and put it the eighth in the world in 1975, with of course differences, and the country was not the one as it was today, of course, but it helped to Spain to have a path to follow. And basically, until today, 50 years later, we have been living from that heritage. The basic of Spain, the basic structure of the state comes from Franco. The basic services come from Franco. Lots of hospitals, social care system. Most of the country we know comes from Franco. Not from Franco, of course. All of the people that work at that time, because he's also part of our grandparents and grandmothers working all together after the war to rebuild the country. But it's true that especially in the 20s, in the beginning of the millennium, the left was so divided and was so under control, let's say, because we also had ETA, the terrorist group, and they needed to go back to the roots of confrontational politics. They needed to confront. The only way to confront was to revive the past. So they start talking about Franco's memory, fascism. The fascism is still alive in Spain. They control the judgery, they control the system, they control the media, they control everything. Which, in the real life, those are the one controlling this system. We say with the socialists, they control the judges, they control the media, they control the state, they control the police, they control the areas, they control almost everything. But they say it's the right, the fascist right, the ones that control. So it helps to fuel their politics, their system, their people, always trying to confront. If something happens, it's because of the fascists. It's never their fault. There's no autocritic here. So it's a way to be alive. They need that. But at the same time, they say the terrorist group is part of the past. We don't need to ask for social justice. We don't need to ask for justice. You know, ETA was finished 10 years ago, but Franco is alive, and we need to confront the fascist.
Sticking with Franco, I think it's a fascinating debate around his legacy and history. I know that he was buried in this Valley of the Fallen in Spain, and then they dug up his body in 2019 because people said, you know, this isn't a hero, we shouldn't be glorifying him. Now, it sounds like you're kind of defending his legacy in a way. I know a lot of people in Spain are still fans of Franco. What about the bad things he did? You know, he obviously allied with Hitler during the Civil War. There was political repression. There was murdering of his opponents, you know, these kind of mass graves that people have dug up and so on. What about these more controversial aspects of Franco and his legacy?
Well, I'd say Franco is a man of the time, and he managed to keep Spain away from the Second World War, managing against Hitler. I mean, he was an ally at the time in the beginning, as most of the countries in Europe, but then he kept distances, and he managed to keep us away from the war. And also after the war, it was difficult times, but also managed to create modern Spain. And of course, as in other countries, there are bad things. So, for example, in this case, of course, was a war, civil war. And when you win a war, probably you do, probably you not. You commit also crimes against people that were fighting the war. We can see also the same situation with the Allies after the Second World War. They had a lot of crimes against the German, all the Axis, the Germans, and the people that fought with the Germans. So it's wartime. It's pretty difficult to talk about from nowadays about this. Of course, that's something to condemn. Nobody's celebrating this kind of murders. But again, it's being used by the left to confront and to create problems, which something that most of the people in Spain would didn't even know, because the modern Spain, most of the people that live now in Spain didn't leave Franco's regime, so they don't know how it was. So it's a completely different thing. And it's true that when you see in the time, for example, my grandparents and a lot of grandparents died 20 years ago, and that's when they started to talk about this. So they wait. They are not stupid guys. The left waited until most of these people were dead, so they cannot say what they saw at the time and what the truth was. And they also passed this law of the historical memory, which tried to present official version of the history, used also by the state to repress dissidents and people that do not believe what the government says about Franco and also the past in that time. It was a civil war. People, friends, brothers, sisters kill each other because of ideas, and I think that we should move forward and not going back to that. That's the most horrific thing we had in the past, and I hope that doesn't happen we don't need to see that again in Spain and never again anywhere.
Coming back to the illegal migration kind of amnesty, I know you didn't call it an amnesty, but giving them the work papers and so on. What do you think the consequences of that will be for Spain and for Europe? Do you think this will encourage more illegal migrants to try and enter Spain and enter Europe through Spain?
Totally. I call them. I don't call it an amnesty because nobody of these people were in jail. So let's say that's a problem that we treat the illegal immigrants as they were legal, or let's say that nobody cares about illegal immigrants as they care about other people, especially native people. And of course, the problem here is the calling effect. With the so-called calling effect, um, more people will come. More people because if they know that only being 5 months in Spain now or it's enough to be a regular immigrant, they will come more. If they know that they will have basic salary from the state, they will come more. If they know they don't need even to speak our languages, they will come more. And they will come more and more and more and more. And we just need to see the data. Uh, Brussels, European Union haven't tackled immigration at all. What they are trying to do now is to magically change or transform the illegal immigration into legal migration. They are not tackling immigration. They are not reducing the immigration flow. What they want is to open more legal ways to make them legal so they can come to England, to the European Union to work, whether it is England, also England, because sooner or later, if they come to Germany, they will go to England, to Britain. And again, we have these agreements with Africa, but now Brussels has signed an agreement with India that allows most of the Indians to come to study or work to European Union. So if we were bad, imagine now having a possibility of 1.4 billion Indians coming to Europe. This will be the end of European Union. This will be the end of Europe as we know, because we know how this works. It's not about racism. It's about a system that is perverted since the beginning, because you are paying people from abroad to do what your native people should do, and you don't pay your native people and you pay people from abroad. You pay people from abroad to have kids instead of paying your own people to have kids. You're paying people from abroad to work instead of paying your own people to work. You're giving education for free to people from abroad instead of your people, and so on, so on, so on. It's a waste of money. And the problem is that as we see the data, for now, with all the data we have in our hands, immigration has not been what they told us that it was going to be. It's a mess, it's a problem, and it's even I don't know if remigration will work. When we talk about remigration, that is something that everyone is talking about. It's true that on the paper, it could work, but when you're going to apply, again, you have the courts against you, you have the media against you, you have the legacy media, the legacy parties against you, and even you have the same most of the people on the streets against you. So there's no political solution as we know, and probably will need to change the systems to be able to practice remigration. This is really, really the challenge of our times for Europeans and from the Western world, especially for Europe. I haven't seen this in my life. I'm almost 40 years. Even, for example, in Brussels, 35% of the city are Muslims and growing. And according to Vlaams Belang, the party from Flanders in the Patriots group, they say that this triangle of the Benelux will be the first Muslim majority area in the Europe in the next 20 years, and the numbers are backing what they say, and there's no way to stop this.
Javier, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.